Hello, Lucré. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, wonderful. Today it's Friday.
Yeah.
Welcome to my podcast, The Human Side
Thank
of
you.
AI Transformation. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today. This is really a conversation we've been talking about it, but the only thing that is going to change is that hopefully the other people will actually listen to your voice and what you have to share. Um, so, yes, tell me a little bit about you. Where are you right now in your
Yeah.
life and physically as well, if you want?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Roberta. So nice to be here as well. And, also after so many times talking and sending messages to each other about the topic, I'm super excited to be here. So where am I now? I'm now at home. It is Friday indeed. Woohoo. It's been a long week. And we've been talking for a while, and I think it's now around 6 months ago that I left corporate to become my own consultancy. So that's where I'm at right now, and that's also why we're now talking, which I think is the great thing about stepping outside. That all of a sudden
Yes.
you get all these nice offsite little quests that you can get on.
Yes, absolutely. Lucre and myself, we've been working together during our parentheses at Criteo. She was working as a L&D manager, and I was on the
Yeah.
GTM side. And yeah, we briefly worked together, but somehow we really connected. We're like definitely sharing the same values and interests in life. So we recently got in touch together, and that's also why I invited Lucre to share her voice on the AI transformation and the human side, especially.
Yeah.
So Lucre, you said you left basically your corporate life as well, like very recently, and you are now embarking in a new journey as an entrepreneur. So you're a consultant. Could you share a little bit more of details about it?
Yeah, sure. I think when I talk about my career or what I've been doing, I always start from the moment I moved to Barcelona. So I've been in Barcelona now for 10 years, where I was lucky enough to join Booking.com. And I got into the L&D space, trainer space, all of the nice things about human behavior and how to change it and how to get there. And from there, I changed to Criteo. And from Criteo, I actually went to Mattel, completely non-tech company, so completely different environment. I've learned a lot about transformation, how that looks like on a tech side, but also in a more traditional corporate environment, which is a bit slower paced than normally tech. And I think it was around, September last year that, I really felt like I think I can do this outside. I can give so much to maybe scale ups, or those companies that are in the nitty gritty details of we're transforming. We don't have the budget maybe to get like a super large L&D team, but we would like to get the knowledge in, and someone that maybe doesn't talk as if they are this big consultant, just a human that is sitting with you and that understands, wait, you're having real challenges, you're having real things happening in your company, and you need someone real to join you and tell you what's going on. So that's really my mission as well, to stay human mostly.
I
And that's, I think, also why we resonated so much.
Yes,
That I think
absolutely.
there's so many, air placements going on that I'm like, let's be human in this transformation.
It's like, what is the main difference that you've been noticing from a tech perspective and non-tech in approaching the transformation from a digital standpoint within the corporate that you've been working in?
Yeah. I think what I observe right now, if I speak to people, and I obviously go a lot to events as well, but they're mostly tech people, especially when you go to Pobla now here in Barcelona. That's like the big tech hub. And there people are building agents and they're building apps and they're building all these kind of cool stuff, and it's really ingrained into their culture as well. Where if you look at my previous experience there, I was working mostly with commercial physical product, obviously a lot of marketing and things going on, and people are definitely using AI. But I haven't seen an adoption where people were really building agents or, building smarter things to work. And it was mostly used, I think, for indeed creating super nice decks or very nice products or a great email, all of those
Yes, yes.
basic things that you do with those tools. And I think that's also great, you know. So I think we're getting into two tracks, and I think that's also what I see right now when I'm talking to people. When I hear people saying like, "Oh, my company, I'm expected to use AI," and then I ask them, "What does that mean?" And they're like, "Yeah, I actually don't know. You know, I'm expected to use AI for my role," and I think, especially from a people and culture perspective, I'm really thinking about what does that mean per role. You know, what does good look like? If I'm in people and culture, how much am I expected to use AI for? I can do a great data analysis, you know, and then interpret that, put that in a great deck that looks all polished. But am I expected to build an agent that manages my inbox? And I think when you look at the more tech advanced roles, like if you look at Criteo, I'm sure that if I go to the R&D department there, I'm going to see advanced use of AI that I have never even seen live. So I think right now in cultures and in companies, you know, we need to think about what does that mean for the organization on which level, other than we are an AI first culture. For me, that's still a very abstract kind of thing that I
For
hear.
you and for many people, indeed. So, who you are speaking with when you approach like a new company or you are sharing like your offering? It's more
Yeah.
employees, more leadership, or C level.
It's a mix. It's basically every company. That sounds a bit too broad, but I think the companies that I'm now focusing on most, that I work best with, are those companies where there's a bit of chaos, you know, and they know this is where we want to go, but we don't really know yet how to unlock it, or how does that look like in practice? How does that culture look like in practice? So we do know that we want to use AI. We do know that we want to have a high performing culture, because that's also the thing. I remember that you and I really clicked after we went both to the same congress, and we came back and we were like, every title had AI, where even some of the talks was like, was this really about AI, or was this about an issue that we've always had? And if I look at my consultancy, what I focus on is really building high performing teams and cultures. So what that means is that I work with companies that think, hey, our team is good, we're doing well, we have these powerful tools, I think we're in the right direction, but how can we now go to the next phase? Or how can we do the transformation? Or we're in hyper growth. You know, how do we keep that culture that we're having today? How do we keep that alive? How does that look like from our leadership standpoint? What does that mean in our day to day? And those are also the companies that I work best with. So that are really thinking, we're doing well, we have a strong culture, but how do we make sure that it doesn't break when we're really scaling up, or when we're getting bigger teams, or we're, you know, promoting our first managers into their first manager roles, like our strongest ICs are now becoming managers. How do we make sure that they become great managers? Or how do we have leaders that indeed showcase that vulnerability, kindness, but also can lead in uncertainty? Because I think right now we're in such a time of uncertainty. If you look at the different revolutions, like industrial revolution, I think took over 100 years. Digital revolution took 25 years. And now with AI, we're only 2 years in. And they're already researching that probably in 5 years we have finished this revolution. So if you only look at the capacity of our brain to keep up with that amount of change, you need very strong culture and leadership to keep that alive, you know, and also to keep people sane in your organization, because we're already seeing that, like, we're exhausted because we can now produce so much more than we've ever been able to consume or produce. How does that then look like? So those are the companies that I work best with, and that's what I'm currently also advising on.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So you're talking about leading in uncertainty. You've been mentioning a lot of emotions, like you know, also sharing vulnerability, because the truth is that leaders do not know, they don't have like a sort of secret weapon, right? But
Yeah.
so what's your secret sauce somehow, if you have?
Well, my secret sauce I will obviously not tell, because then everybody will know. No.
Just a few ingredients.
I think you've already noticed I'm very much human first. I come as I am, with a joke, with normal talk. Of course, I know the frameworks, the data, everything behind it. But I think most importantly, listen. Listen first, what's going on? What's really underneath it? What are you really trying to solve? Because sometimes, and I always give this example when a leader would come to me when I was internal, like, we need a feedback training. And I'd be like, do you really? Like, do you really, or is there something in your team that is maybe underneath the surface? And I think that's also what's happening right now. You know, I hear from companies like, hey, I see people are using AI, but maybe not to their best capability, or what's really going on. And I think it's really about listening, like what is going on in your specific environment that you want to work on. And then really go to the root cause. You know, we can put stamps everywhere and then create nice decks and everything. And I think one of the main challenges that I heard the other day, where's L&D going? And I was having a conversation with someone who literally said, yeah, I think L&D will not exist in a few years because AI will take over. And I was with like, if you think that L&D is a deck on a screen where I transfer knowledge to you, then I really doubt with what type of LODers you have been in touch with. But also, I think it's really about the behavior change behind it. And I'll go back to that feedback training. The amount of times I've had a feedback training where people would sit back and be like, I know the model. I'd be like, that's great, but your team is still telling me that you're not giving them feedback. So you know the model, but you're not doing it. And I think this is what I'm seeing right now. You know, everybody seems to know. Everybody, is like, but there's so much uncertainty. So I think my secret sauce is a little bit like, let's cut through all the noise and look what's really going on. Are you as a leader showcasing the right behavior? Are you giving people time to fail? Are you giving people time to experiment? Because I think we're right now also in a workforce where more people than ever are in a stretched role, right? I've never seen so many people doing a dual role at
Yeah.
the same time, or doing some kind of stretch role.
You were talking about like the stretch of people, like this sort of pattern, like everyone is actually wearing everyone else's shoes right now. But
Yeah,
don't you think that this is has been even before? It started before the AI advent, actually.
absolutely.
I don't know if it was only for the tech. I've been reading this a lot on the social medias. Like a lot of people think this is just an excuse. Sometimes AI is like a new excuse for layoff, for cutting budget. And this is the podcast to talk honestly with no filters. And
Yeah.
we don't have the name of the companies anymore. So we are even, more freer to
Yeah,
speak.
unfiltered.
Unfiltered, definitely. So that sort of resistance, right? Resistance to change, or can we see it as a disengagement?
I don't think so. Sometimes maybe yes. I mean, in some individual cases, some people just don't want to, and I think that's okay. Let them be. But I also like to assume good intent, and I think you were already touching upon a few things like, is AI a reason for layoffs? Well, quite frankly, I do think it does remove a big cost. Where before we spend a lot of money on producing things, I think we're removing one of the biggest bottlenecks. Is we can produce a lot right now. If I look at my latest role that I've had in-house, I couldn't have done that job without AI. I'll be quite frankly, if I see the output and milestones that I've been able to reach, that was definitely because I had a strong tool in front of me that I could tell what I wanted to have. So if I needed a playbook for a new program, if I look at my time, 10 years ago in Booking.com, I would spend a full day on speaker notes, a trainer guide, creating all of those nice things, where in my last role, that was done in a day. So I do think, yes, we can produce faster. But I think to your point, what AI also will bring us, and this is where I'm hopeful, and I hope companies will take time to implement that, is it's removing a lot of work. So we actually have more time to be human, to spend on reflection. I mean, reflection is one of the most underestimated business skills I think there is. Just a moment to sit with your thoughts, to just, or go for a walk and then all of a sudden, a light bulb. Or when you're in the shower, how many light bulbs have you had in the shower? I think a lot of people. And I think reflection is one of those things that we will get from AI because there's time, but also collaboration. If I've done so many offsites where people were sitting in a room together, would work together for 5 or 6 years and say to me, I actually don't know who they are. I just realized. And
That
I'm like, oh
sounds
my
so
God, we're
familiar.
so busy. We're so busy with producing. I remember when we reconnected that we both said, have we actually ever met in person or only over Zoom? And I am hopeful. I'm excited about AI. I use AI. I'm a tech geek, always has been, I love it. But I'm also hopeful that with the right cultures, so not the hustle cultures where we're draining people to the bone, but that companies will understand, wait, if this is our powerful tool where we can remove bottlenecks like long hours on a deck, long hours on an analysis, long hour on that, that the tool can do for us, but that gives us actually more human time back where we can collaborate. Hey, Roberta, how do you like to collaborate with me? What is it that you need from me? When we're working together, how would you like me to work together? Those are conversations that I've consistently in the 10 years that I'm now doing this profession, I hear I've never actually asked how they like to receive feedback. Or I never really asked how they would like to work with me or how I can show up for them as a colleague. And I'm hopeful that with, having less time on tasks that are consuming time of us, that we'll have more time to be human. At least maybe it's naive. I don't know. But I think also if we look at then engagement, uh, employee satisfaction, all of those things that we know drive the business forward will come from these nice human skills. So I'm hopeful. Also, I think it's a wave that we're still on. I hope, and we're living in a very volatile time at the moment. That's also the reality. So I think there's a reality, and but there's also a lot of opportunity.
Nice. I really, really like your optimism. This is actually the kind of energy that I want to bring on stage, that the kind of human energy, by the way. Um, so the first one, it's about like AI removing cost at organizational level, because that was actually one of the certain companies think or used to think until like the beginning of this year. AI the last year was completely budgeted within organization overall P&L,
Yeah.
and now what so many leaders like in very big organizations are noticing is that is not actually removing costs. So from it, if maybe is removing one part of the cost, right? But it is actually adding such a big extra amount of cost that they weren't budgeting or just forecasting before. For
Yeah.
example, tokens. So what happens when you buy the licenses to and you push your employees actually to get familiar with those tools? Everyone is producing something. If you push your employees to use AI and they produce whatever it is just because they want to say or they want to get familiar with the tool, like they're using AI. Are you using those tokens for the right tool and production?
Yeah.
What a lot of leaders are actually seeing, and I was at the HR week a couple of weeks ago already, and there was a very, very insightful panel where they were actually discussing this point. A few companies realized that they already finished their yearly budget for 2026 for AI
Yeah.
and L&D because of that. And so at
Yeah.
a certain point, they had to start limiting employees to use AI in certain things. So this is an extra cost. And lots of organizations being pro AI are already realizing that, and they're already like defining a new strategy for the next year and for the rest of H2, basically, because we are still in
Yeah.
H2. Something that not everyone has been thinking. And then your perspective on what AI will bring, because you are extremely optimistic. I like that. And I do share with you actually this, but this is more like our hope.
Yeah.
Because
That's why I say I'm hopeful. I'm
absolutely,
hopeful.
Absolutely.
And I still think there's a true reality, and that links back to what you were saying before, about the removing of the cost. That only works if we know what we're aiming for. So we're going back to a tale as old as time.
Yes.
If you
And
don't
the
start with
reflection thing
why,
as well that we were mentioning before, it's so
yeah,
connected actually. It's like
exactly.
intentionality, right, as well?
Yeah,
So yeah, this is definitely our hope. Reflection, collaboration, intentionality as well on the way we use AI and we want to use AI. And
yeah,
you are like already mentioning a few very important skills. But there is actually one question that I want to ask you. What are for you the top skills that you believe we should really mastering within this AI area?
yeah. Yeah, it's actually interesting that I was reading a little bit also on, what AI does to learning. So, what we know about learning and how we learn, especially as adults, is also by failing and by doing and by being uncomfortable and by trying. And then when you try, you learn again. And what we're now seeing with AI, what I was researching, is that that piece has been removed. Because now I say to Claude, hey, Claude, can you create a PowerPoint deck for me? Can you put it like this and this and this? I get it out. I look at it. And I'm like, don't like it. Okay. Can you do this and this and this? But I don't actually learn anymore how to fix the issue. So, and this it doesn't only come from me. I also look at the Future of Jobs report. We see that the emerging skills for 2030 are, for example, analytical thinking and thinking about what you're doing. And I think that is a thing that AI might, we need to stay critical. We cannot just rely on the tool to create stuff for me, because that would mean you're stop learning. Like I say this always, you can read a book, you can know the model. I say the same when people go to therapy. I'm like, okay, great. Do you go? But do you also do something with it, or do you just go and then you leave it? And that's how we learn.
Yeah.
We learn by failing. We learn by not being perfect, by receiving feedback. And that's one of the skills that I know we need to have for 20 for the years to come. So that's one we need to be critical with. Like, how do we stay critical thinking, analytical thinking? How do we keep our brains active that, we don't rely only on the tool, what it can produce? And we also know from Future Job leadership, a major skill that we'll need, because now we have all these people looking like an expert, producing amazing stuff. So now as a leader, you need to make sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time. Can somebody explain what they've done? Or is it just a nice looking analysis, but do they know how they got to the analysis? No, Claude did it for them, or Lovable, or whatever AI tool you're using. So I think that's very important, but also collaboration. One of the main things that we still need to develop is also cross-functional collaboration, or even cross-cultural. Like you and I both worked in very international environments where we all come from different cultures, different backgrounds. That's something we need to also fix, especially in a world that is getting more open and open every single time. So for me, these are still skills that we need to develop in the upcoming years, that we need to look at, and those are deeply human. Like, that AI cannot do for us. Like, it can tell me what a culture might prefer, but that person in front of you might not be specific that profile. So you still have to talk to them and be like,
Yes.
hey, can you tell me more?
Yes, yes. So very, very important skills, Lucre, like critical thinking, the collaboration part that I love. Lots of people are actually trying to going back to the in real life communities
Yes.
or
Yeah.
events, these kind of things. And it's true. I mean, since 2020, now we are so tired of virtual things. And
Yeah.
there is like this sort of trend where when we are in real life event, we feel like exhausted, we feel like it's a lot. But on the other side, it is actually social health, which is like a very, very important nowadays. How do we do
Yeah.
that in organizations? How can we foster this kind of culture?
Yeah.
Because we always been talking about those skills. We've been
Yeah.
labeling them as soft skills, and now somehow the paradox of AI is like they're becoming more and more urgent, critical, really. So while AI can do a lot of stuff that we before we were trained to do, and now it's really a paradox to say we need also those human skills, and the most of people are actually forgetting about those skills. They can be trainable as well. So what's the advantage? What's the benefit of
Yeah.
training those skills?
I, well, I think soft skills already doesn't cover them anymore. I think they're deeply human skills, critical skills, like to your point. Um, I mean, if you're asking me how to do that, I think it comes down again to taking time out. Take time out of production, of hustling, of doing, and create those moments, whether it's by, I mean, I don't know about you, Roberta, but well, I remember that in Criteo we had this. It was called Donut. You remember that on
Yes,
Slack?
yes, yes, yes.
And Donut would match you randomly with someone in the organization, and you would take half an hour to have coffee with them. And it was really done to connect people, especially when it was pandemic. I joined Criteo in the pandemic. I didn't step foot in an office until 8 months after I joined because we were not allowed to be in the office. But even then, I noticed that I was moving that coffee up because it felt like cheating, taking that time out to just simply have a coffee. Where now, fast forward, if I look at my last job, the main thing that people were telling me was like, oh, I actually don't ever talk to someone out of my function, or I don't know what they do. And so again, we need to create a culture where it doesn't feel like cheating or I'm not being productive when I'm having a cup of coffee with my colleague, understanding what is it that they do on a day-to-day basis and how can that help me forward. When we looked at, for example, we had a career action planning, where people would say what they would like to develop. And one of the main things that we would see there was, I want to build relationships within the company. I want to expand my business acumen. I want to understand better what the business is doing. The only way you can find that out is by actually spending time with those people. But I know in a team where everybody's already behind, or your deadlines are behind, or you have such a to-do list still to do, it feels unproductive to maybe sit down with that colleague and say, hey, can I learn from you for a moment? And this is the other thing that AI is now doing. If I want to learn something, I already hear that people saying like, I don't need you, I can look that up. Yeah, with Google as well, but you still won't learn anything. So yeah, you might be able to read it. So I think it's again coming down to intention, creating a culture where people can experiment, where people are free to I keep going back to Donut again, like use Donut and go meet with someone random in the business that you normally never speak to. Or maybe someone outside, like when you were inside, when did you take time out to maybe speak with somebody externally from a different company just to learn from them? Like, can you imagine saying that to your team? You need to have a really psychological safe team.
Yeah.
To say, hey, I actually went for lunch with somebody from another company because I wanted to learn from them. And then people will look at you and be like, can you not do that in your own time? Where it's part of your role. You're doing that because you want to get better at your job. So this is this contradiction, and it's a hard discussion. It's a tough discussion. I haven't been able to crack it. But I think it does come down as a leader to say, you're safe here. And I allow you to sometimes also, when I trust you, that you know that that's the best thing to do it while you are finishing, of course, the things that you have to finish. But that is what I mean. You can only do that when you have a culture or a team where that is the norm. And that is intentional work. That's not something that just, magically appears. That also means you need to challenge yourself as a leader. When you're running into something that you're thinking, I don't like what they're doing, you need to reflect with yourself, maybe talk to a peer, and then decide, okay, is this something now? Okay, great. So again, about, I think it's all about creating that environment where people feel safe to fail and connect and take time out. And somehow we have this image of, oh, I need to be productive for 8 hours in front of my computer. Even now as an entrepreneur, all of us, I'm the boss. So I'm my own boss. And the other day I wanted to read a book in the sunshine and I felt so stupid. Like, am I allowed? But I was actually reading a business book. And this is what I mean. We're so programmed to be productive.
And to be in front of the laptop somehow and to
Yes.
do it alone, that when you feel you
Yes.
are doing something different, it's like you feel unproductive, like you're cheating
Yeah.
or you feel guilty. I know that feeling.
And I sometimes learn more when I'm having a cup of coffee with someone or with somebody that I just met or with a friend who's telling something. And I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And it looks like I'm having coffee and I'm having a fun time, which I am. But, we underestimate the connection or indeed the hustling culture.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't cracked it. I've also been in back-to-back meetings. There are also days where, but I think it starts with creating the trust, creating the safety, and saying it's okay to step away from your laptop and I will not check where you are.
That's
Also,
beautiful.
especially now with going back into person, I mean, a lot of companies are moving from fully remote or hybrid to actually being more in person. We're not opening up that can of worms today. We can do that in a different episode. But I think it does say something about there is an actual chance for us to connect again. And also in the office, let's not judge each other when somebody steps away from their computer. If that's how their brain works, respect that. But sometimes people don't see, like, for example, I'm taking myself. Most of my brilliant ideas come when I step away from my laptop. For someone else, that might look like, oh, she's not working. Oh, my brain is working full speed, especially when I need to be creative. So, yeah, there's so much to unpack. I can talk about this for hours.
Indeed.
Hmm.
Your perspective on that.
Well, again, I'm hopeful. This has been my hope for a few years, but I think now we're actually getting an opportunity because, look, for a long time, traditional L&D teams consisted out of instructional designer, a facilitator. There was somebody who was doing the partnering with the business, or that person would be 5 in 1. In a lot of companies, that's also the reality because of budgets. If I look at L&D, there's a big opportunity for us that actually creating the materials will cost us less time. With the right use of AI, creating an actual program or a deck, if you know what it has to look like, will be faster. And that's great because that will mean that we have more time to be a strategic partner to the business. We have more time to sit down with the leader or with the IC or with anyone and hear what's really going on, and then the tool that you're bringing in to create that behavior change is just a tool. That's your Swiss Army knife. And that one is so equipped now that we can create everything. I mean, there was a time where we had LMSs full of content and we would plug in another one and another one. And then when I talk to people, they would say, well, like, I don't know where to start with learning. And I think the great thing now is that we can spend more time as L&D with people and ask them, what is it that you need? Where are you stuck? And coach people, but also be more strategic to the business. Because if you don't have a fancy LMS system or you don't have a fancy data analyst team, I mean, I come from some corporate environments where we had literally a role for everyone. But I've also, in my last role, we were very lean. So, like I said, I couldn't have done my job without, because I could all of a sudden do a data analysis so much faster than I could ever before. So I think where I'm landing is that there's a real opportunity for L&D to be the strategic partner that we've wanted to be for a long time. We can now spend more time on connecting, behavior change, observing people, sitting and see what's happening in that team, than spending time on, I need to design this training, which, like the amount of time I've spent in PowerPoint.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember those times, like if it was
I'm happy that I don't
early.
have to. Because now I can spend time in, hey, we've done this training, we've done this intervention with your team. How did it land? What is the impact? And I'm also hopeful that L&D teams will, switch away a little bit. And don't kill me, fellow L&Ders, but like I love a good survey and I love a good engagement rate and I love, oh, my training is getting a 9.5 out of 10. That's the cool part, but it doesn't tell us anything.
Yeah,
And I hope that right now we can move beyond that, because that's something that we know, but that we can, spend more time on actually being strategic and being a real business enabler, because we are.
yeah,
And that's where I'm very hopeful that now with removing the time, we can all step into that gap and not just be, oh, I designed, and which is super powerful work. I've some of my best trainings come from back in the days. But yeah, I'm excited about this. From
yeah,
like, let systems work for you and not against you. So I think it's an opportunity. I know there's also a real threat. So the reality is also that we have some great instructional designers that I know are scared at the moment, and I think that's completely valid. But I think there's a real opportunity there, because what good looks like. So putting that into a even more powerful machine, wow, I'm excited what's going to come out.
nice, nice. I really marry your perspective, I would say. I love this optimism again, and to be honest, I completely agree with you. Also making sure that at team level, everyone, I remember those chasing, like, okay, let's make sure. I think perhaps we need to make sure that everyone has the
Years, because we do survey those, and it's a topic that internally in an L&D team we would always talk about, like what is the behavior change, what is the real implementation. But I think in reality we missed time to consistently follow up on that if you didn't have a large team. So it was one of those things that would go down the drain fastest. Where now, indeed, I think we have time to come and after 3 weeks be with you, like, hey, Roberta, we've done that training a while ago.
yeah,
What did you keep from it? And I think that is what AI might give us as an LT
yeah.
team back, more time to be with the people and really speak about what did they take from the learning and what maybe does need some small micro adjustments.
Absolutely. Super, super nice. The very last comment, I promise. It's like one of the biggest challenge nowadays in the way we interact with AI is the amount of information that we receive, right? And how much of this information we are actually able to retain. So for me, the future of L&D stands also in that sort of gap, like an opportunity. It's to
Yeah.
really making sure that people are not just receiving a training, but really integrating into their daily life. Thank you so much, Lucre. Has been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Um,
Same. Thank you so much, Roberta.
Thank you.